Hi, this is Sue from the Mountain Canary Company. Okay, so you're out on a trail, you're heading into the backcountry, and you're going down this trail looking really nice. Yeah, and the trail's nice and clean. So you come around this corner and oh my gosh, what is that big tree doing in the trail? Here's Ed to tell you how to fix this or how to work with the tools that you've got, or you better be planning on these tools.
Wow, Sue, that was great. She's gonna take over my job here pretty soon. Anyway, one of the first this is not uncommon for trail riders or for somebody running a little pack string or a big pack string. This is not uncommon to have things give you blockage. A lot of times, depends on where you are. If you're running across a lot of flat land, you're not going to be seeing lots of this. You get over in the brushy high country, going into the high country, you're going to see it. And it's even if I've been before, we've got a trail crew go through ahead of us. Next week I came through and there was stuff across the trail. Well, that's just the way it is. And you have to kind of figure out how to deal with it. First question you ask yourself, what am I doing here? Do I have to get by this blockage? Is there something I'm required to be by this blockage? Can I field change this and go to another spot and do the same thing I want to do there? Do I have to deal with this blockage? If you say, yes, I got to deal with this blockage, then you have to ask yourself another question. How can I deal with it? Am I tooled for it? And that's pretty much where we are today here, is to talk about tooling for that project. Tooling for a project like that can start small and goes big. But in reality, starting small probably works best. Normally what you're going to find is you're going to find some blowdown, some small limbs and brush, stuff that's been knocked into the trail. And normally a very small saw can handle it. Now, this is the size saw that you'll find in most of the Olympic National Park packers' saddlebag. It's called a Corona razor tooth saw. They've issued them, all of the folks up there. And you can do a lot with this little 8-inch saw. I mean, you really do a lot. And I've done a lot with a small saw like this. You're not going to cut a big limb out, a big piece of log out, and so you're going to have to probably think about it a little bit. But this will really do with small stuff. Pine maples, small pieces of fir trees falls, small pieces of limbs that come down on the trail that they're just not going to be able to pull off. So really what you have to do is stop, tie off, get organized, go get what tool you have to work with, and go over there and try to deal with this. If you can pull it out of the trail and shove it off in a brush, that's the easiest way to do it. If not, you're going to have to cut. So here's where we start. We start with the smallest saw that's usually carried out there, this size saw, about 8-inch. I would go a lot smaller. These aren't that expensive. You get them online. I can't remember what I paid for this, but they're quite reasonable. Very good little saws, very handy. You're not going to be, you could stick it in a saddlebag. It'll do you good. Now here's the same saw. It'll do a little more work. That's the 10-inch. Well, if you'll notice here, Sue, there's a whole lot more saw here. And you can see you can do a whole lot more work. So the toss-up is, do I go to a little bit bigger saw, which will do the same work as a small saw with that type of shark's tooth type of blade, or do I go to the smaller one? It's all up to you, your choice. You're going to have to live with whatever you decide. This is a very, very good saw. You got a pretty good reach out of it. You can see you got a good reach away from you compared to the reach for this little guy here. You can see the reach. You got a little better reach. So you're going to have a little more opportunity to pull something down if you got to reach over your head. These are very good little saws, and maybe this is about the only saw you need. You'll have to decide. Now we're going to move on. There's another kind of saw out there that's really available. That's your newer type of pruning saws. They follow kind of a Japanese pattern. A lot of them come with a nice plastic sheath. You can hook them on your saddle. And it's pretty handy. it's a pretty handy little saw. And you can see, that's a pretty serious saw. It'll do a lot of work. And surprisingly, if it all depends on what is down in front of you. In many cases, if you just cut it around, cut it enough to step over. You know, if you're not working as a trail crew, and so any of you guys are watching our trail crew types, or you want to be trail rats, don't look. I'm not in there to clear your trails. I'm in there to get myself to some place. So if you're having a generous moment and you decide you want to clear the trails as best you can, well, go ahead. But most times the best thing to do is consider on clearing it so you can get in and get back out again. But these are really handy little saws. They're not, again, Amazon. I don't remember what I paid for it. It can hang right on your saddle. Goes into this protective scabbards, which these polyethylene type scabbards are really tough. Okay, and we're going to move along. And that's kind of not what you've been seeing a lot of in these. But more likely what you're seeing. I'm going to step up for a second and reach over here. Sit right now. Now these are the kind of trail saws you're used to seeing. They hook them on this ride with them under your leg on your ride animal, and they're a pruning saw also. And some places you can get them with the sheaths. You can find with the sheaths. This one's been around a long time. It's a 24-inch blade. You can cut a lot with it, and it's right now. I just pulled it out, realized I need to clean it up a little bit to oil it again. But you can do a lot with it. This one's seen a lot of hard wear, and it's got a little bit of a set to it from under the leg. So again, these are available. You're not looking at money that's going to break the bank, but this is a real hard working saw, and this will get you by, open up more stuff. But in many times it's a little more comfortable to reach out in your saddlebag, pull out a little guy like this that can do 99% of the work you're going to want to do with this guy, unless you're cutting some limbs, big thick limbs. So keep that in mind too. But another thing too is when we're talking about these under the leg type of saws, I'll pull another one out here too. I've got saws here that range between the 24 inches. I've got a 36, I got a 42, and I got a 5-foot saw here. I'm not breaking them out today. I rarely deal with that 42 or the 5-foot one, and I don't carry this one very often. If I do, this could go underneath a pack box, and well, geez, that's a long way back in the pack string. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's why it's there, a long way back in the pack string, along with or my 36-incher, a long way back, because what you don't want to do is have something like this on your riding animal that you can get a lead rope wrapped around. If you can get a lead rope wrapped around the front of this thing, hooked up underneath, you're hooked up underneath it, and you're hooked in a bad situation. You've got a bad piece of business going. So consider when you put these saws on, where to put them. My suggestion, and you do whatever you want to do, it's your life, not mine, but I go and put it on the last animal in the pack string. And I tend to put the saw to the back. And whenever you do it, you want to make sure you've got your teeth up. Saw to the back, so that way that nothing can hook on this. So there's nothing behind your last pack animal, and that'll avoid this getting hooked up. So you got to tie off and walk back a couple of feet. Well, it's a whole lot safer than putting this someplace else, getting a lead rope wrapped around it, and then having a really bad day. People get hurt really bad doing that. Get a lead rope wrapped up around something on your riding animal or on any other animal. So I put this to the back, in the back, where there's nothing else going to get in trouble with. And you can see this is all set up to be hooked up. This can be hooked up under a pack saddle. If you saw my riding saddle, I have rings. These will hook into the rings. And the pack saddle, these can go around the hoops, they can go around the bars. There's enough slack here to do all of that. But up under the boxes, up underneath, next to the animal, up under the bottom, with this nice flat surface, it's not going to be a problem. Okay, let's go to the next one I got over here. My show and tell pile. This is my favorite. This is a 36-inch saw, and I carry it like this. It's a really cool saw. I lost my handle, got broke, that there should be a second handle here and a handle on the bottom. I just ordered one today. But this is a very good saw. It's designed, the tooth pattern is not like what we're seeing a lot of tooth patterns with they skip teeth and so forth in them. But this one has, the design for this is a very old pattern. It came out, it's a European pattern. It's designed to cut both hardwood and softwood well. In a lot of times, if you're trail crewing and you're using crosscut saws, you're going to pick one of the two type of tooth patterns. And depending a lot on what you're cutting. If you're cutting a lot of hardwood, you want one shape of tool, one type of tooth, and it's set at a different angle. And if you cut softwood, you want another type of tooth set at a different angle. This one's kind of runs in between. This is a kind of scrubber saw. Basically, it's a saw to get me in and get me out. I can use around camp to cut firewood. A lot of people use these when they're making log cabins. This is one of the common saws for log cabin construction. That's where I found out about it. So again, this goes on again to carry. I carry it so that the blade, the cutting edge of the blade, come here, get in there, is up. So that when I pull it out, yeah, you know it. This is not, I mean, there. So when you pull it out, the teeth are up and kind of away from the animal. The second thing is, if you're concerned of the animal that you've got it on that's nervous and jerky, if you're concerned that they're going to be, this is upside down, and if you're concerned that they're going to be jumping around and that you could cut them, for all good sense, take the thing off and take the saw out. So again, that's a lot easier to do at the back of the pack string than up in the front, where you've got a whole bunch of other animals wanting to come up around you and do other things. So it's a lot better to be in the back. This one hangs up underneath my box load, right up under the box load, out of the way. And if I set it up so that if I need to, I can reach up and drop it, pull it out. The other thing is, with this kind of a setup, this is a plastic container. This is open. So we get rainwater in, it runs out the bottom. And I got several different positions where I can pick it up top or bottom. Really handy, nice little saw, 36 inches. Does wonders. I'm really pleased with it. Okay. Now, again, remember, you're taking you're pulling out this multi-tooth stiletto next to your animal. So keep that in mind too. So as you load everything up and figure out, ask yourself how you're going to get it out, plan how you're going to get it out, and worry a little bit ahead. Now, cutting limbs, little limbs and some picker poles even aren't going to be such a problem. They won't give you any real major problem, or shouldn't. They'll have to split some little barber poles, barber chair poles, breaks, can happen. But they're not going to be a problem. You get up to bigger stuff, you can start having problems. And when you have to undercut, a lot of times if you've got a piece of tree down, and you need to undercut it so that you can relieve the pressure. So when you finish your cut up on top, it just doesn't fold in and lock your blade. I suggest that in your kit, when I said kit, I mean, in other words, give it a thought and plan ahead. In your kit, you have a wedge or two. These are plastic wedges. If you go to any of the saw shops, you get them online. And you can use these to wedge your cuts as you're making them, if you're worried there's going to be a pinch. I could see the situation where you could pinch a saw well enough that you go by that saw when you leave the saw there. I could see you coming back through and looking. Yeah, that's my saw. It's still there. It hasn't left. So these will help you a lot to save your bacon. Another thing is, when you're cutting, there's pitch in this wood, and as you cut, your saw blade will get fouled with this pitch. It'll make it harder and harder and harder to cut. Used to be years ago, you'd see pictures I'm from logging country here, I did a little bit myself, and you could see pictures of guys standing there with big crosscuts cutting these big firs that were here. Now, if you look at that carefully, you'll see a little bottle sitting on the side, a little glass bottle. That little glass bottle was kerosene. And it was designed that how they used it, they put a little kerosene on that. When it started pitching up, they put kerosene on it. It kept getting that pitch down, so the drag wasn't slowing it down and dragging tighter and tighter and tighter, make it harder and harder and harder to saw. Because it's times you want to move fast with your saw, so you don't get in trouble when you're trying to finish your cut. So the best way for us to deal with that isn't kerosene. And I have it stuck in another box in the truck. It's a small bottle of WD-40. I carry a small bottle, a spray can of WD-40. Any oil like that. Spray the blade before you start cutting along. Feel it, look at your bit. If you're picking up some pitch, stop, spray it again, keep going. This is not a Sawyer glass. The other thing is, you get yourself pinched, get yourself in trouble. There's only one way you're probably going to get yourself out of trouble. Next, you're going to chop your saw out. And this can be handy to drive in your wedge. I suggest you have at least a decent hatchet with you. This is an east wing axe. The hatchet version is a little shorter. This is really, I've had this axe for years. It's really a nice weight, good balance. It's not that expensive. It's got a good head on it. You could even carve with it if you wanted to. So the thing about it is that you're not going to break the handle. Look at Ed, always worried about these little things. You're not going to break the handle. That handle's there. You get that truck run over it, you probably won't break the handle. So when you're going back in there, think of how, when you're going into this, also think, well, should I have an axe? Well, yeah, you should have an axe. More than likely, realistically, an axe and a small saw can probably get you going. And you decide. I personally prefer to have a decent saw. I don't want to be there all day cutting through something with an axe. The more I use an axe, the greater the chance is that I get hurt, slip, something goes wrong. The axe can be easily dulled if it hits a rock. Make sure when you leave you sharpen your axe. Little things like that. Practice at home. You know, practice, if you're going to swing an axe, go at home and swing an axe. Don't find yourself 25 miles into that country and hitting your toe. Get a little more experience with it in your hands. This is not a bad axe at all. There's good axes out there. At that point, any axe is a good axe. So, again, this is what I call, what is it, the east wing? Yeah, east wing. These have been around for a long time. I've had this axe for 30 years. And it's got to show it. But so I think the thing about it is, what I want you to do is realize that you're not getting on the car and driving down 75 miles to someplace to a concert, where you can expect to get back in the car and drive home, or expect to, once if you break down, call 3A. This is a whole different world. This is your 3A kit. It's a heck of a note to go out there, hurry all week, get yourself all set up to go, wrestle all your stuff together. Get all excited about going someplace for a day of fishing or two, and camping, and get in it, get started, go in there, and all of a sudden, coming out, here's about 3 trees come down. I don't think I'm going to work Monday morning. I'm going to be late. So you don't need that. So you need to prepare yourself. First thing you do when you run into a blockage, look, can I get around it? Don't start pulling out tools if you don't have to. Can I get around it? Then when you look at it, what is the minimum amount of tooling I need to get at this? Do I just need to cut these viney maples out of the way? Then just take your little hand saws out or hand saw out and whack them down. So it's a lot. There is no 3A in here. This is not uncommon. I was summertime up in the Olympics. Even though the trail crews have gone through and cleared them out really good, did a great job. I was going in, pull a trail crew out of Upper Duckabush, and I had to go come up out a staircase and go up over First Divide, and go down into the Upper Duck campground. Picked up the trail crew, went through this area. Now this area was very, very steep, very narrow trail, and no place to go up, or logically go up, or no place for sure to go down. And so there I was. I went through this one spot. There's several miles of this. I went through this one spot. I get down into the Upper Duck campground. I grab the guys. We load everything up. I'm pulling them out. And I head back out. Well, the good thing was they were walking out behind me. There was only 2 of them. One of the third guys had gone out early. And right in a spot where I just come through, a big tree up the mountainside had come down. As it came down, took out the tops of a couple other ones, broke off a couple lower ones, and next thing I had a pile of junk about 8 feet tall in front of me. And my dang riding mule at the time she said, let's go. She knew where we had to go, and it was basically, she figured through that pile. And I'm going, we're not going through that pile, dummy. So I'm having to try to talk her into standing still. I've got the pack string back there itching to go, and they don't like standing where they're standing. The ground's sloped, it's uneven, and they know it's not good. So luckily, trail crew was behind me. They jumped up and run ahead of me and start pulling stuff out of that. And then they starts kicking stuff. Well, what they were kicking was the fact that the tree that had come down had been rotten. And in the summertime, with the changing of hot and cold, it was really hot that day, from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, that contraction expansion, that's when we get a lot of summertime blowdown. And that thing came down to do the damage. They were able to go through there and kick a hole through that stuff, enough to give me a little bit of a trail to kind of crawl through. Well, the gang was capable of going through. It was not unsafe. We worked our way through it and we got out of there. But that's not uncommon. I've seen so many of those where some of them I can just swing out around and push through the brush. If there's a spot I can push through the brush and get out. If not, you're going to have to figure something out. And for me, turning around at that point, if I'd have been alone, I'm not sure exactly what I'd have done. I'd have to do something. But I'm not sure. I more than likely would have had to turn everybody around and turn the whole world around and slowly lead them by foot downhill back to the campground, which was 1.5 miles away, tie them back up, and then walk back up and try to sort that thing out the best I could. Then go back down and get my gang, and then come out. But fortunately, I had trail crew behind me that could take care of that. I've had a lot of different adventures with that. One of the funniest ones I ever had was cute. I'd gone in. We had coming out of the staircase. I was headed into 9th Street, and I had a volunteer backcountry ranger working with me, and he wasn't working, but he was traveling in, and the big logs. I mean, they were 5 foot across or more. Had come down, but it was rotten. So it's that all red, rotten wood. But when it broke, it was just mound in the trail, and there was really not a lot of room around that trail. So coming in, I turned the back string left and pushed him into the brush. we crawled through the brush. We physically crawled through the brush. And pushed this, got out of there. Well, that's about the time this young fellow caught up with me. I said, will you go back there and kick a trail through that stuff? Because here's a 5-foot pile. And it wasn't ready for me to crawl through it. I said, go back and just kick a trail through that. So I went on and unloaded everything, came back, and I passed him. Yeah, I got kicked in there for you. Wonderful. Headed down there. Wrong. He didn't go across the trail to kick the trail in. He kicked the trail in from another spot that had broken to my left. Now here I was between two old snags. So I got in there and stopped there. I'm looking at that. I went looking at Moby was the half-linger gelding was with me at the time, and a couple other animals. I looked back. They were all pretty narrow because I was coming out with them empty, but he was loaded with boxes. And I looked back and said, you know, I think we could do that, Mob. So I stepped up with Monty. We stepped up into that hole, and I asked Moby to come up, and he walked up there, and he looked at that. His eyes got as big as dinner plates. He looked at that, and looked at left. He looked at right, looked at left, looked at me, and I said, oh, you can do it, Mob. Come on. So he's okay. He stepped up. Whack. He jammed right in that damn thing. He was stuck him right there. Oh my, did I feel like an idiot. Here I see he was questioning me. You think it's okay? And I told him, yeah, sure, no problem. Mob, world sort of optimist, pluck. So we had to then get off and push Moby back, clear out another way to go around and find our way out of that. But that was kind of interesting. Well, folks, I hope this has given you some more information that'll help you out down the road. If you do me a favor, please, if you wouldn't mind sharing this with folks so we can get the ideas out there. And the other thing is, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, all this stuff makes the YouTube bean counters or something happy, so they'll show it to other people. That's the only reason. I don't get anything out of it. So thank you very much for coming by. And until next time, remember to ride as often as you can, but please, please, please ride careful. See you now.